203, 231, 227. Shooting for a strike here that'll put it in a roll-off. There it is from the right side. Roll-off from Fresno as Paul Moser strikes out for a 213, and this match is tied. And what pressure that young man played under.
Third strike for the tie. Excellent shot. Once again, Jim, trust. That's something you cannot teach a bowler. That's something that they have naturally. And in a pressure situation, that's where you want to throw it. That's where the pros want to hit light. And you see Paul doing it, and that is the way you tie a match. Very good.
213 to 213. Earl Anthony is the first one up. What a marvelous conclusion to a regular 10-frame match. Earl Anthony's got a strike, and these guys are really showing what it's all about. There's the first one for Earl.
Last year on the television show here, there was a tie between Mike Durbin and Guppy Troop. And this year here, history repeats itself a little bit. Earl starts right out with a strike, puts the pressure right on Paul. Let's see if Paul can keep the momentum going his way.
Okay, Earl got the one strike, and now they go to Paul in his first frame of the roll-off, and he has three of them fall out, and he's got a strike. Oh, man.
Last four shots by Paul have been excellent. He has trusted every ball beautifully. His ball is just out there. It's going to make the nice turn. Once again, light. Head pin goes off, does its job. Taking out the 5, 6, 10. Great shot.
Okay, the two-frame roll-off just as a regular match. Earl goes first, and then Paul will close it out, and then Earl will finish. Both of them with a strike, and there is a strike for Paul Moser.
I'd have to say the boys lined up.
He has 5 strikes in a row. Actually, 8 of the last 9 have been strikes. Nope, 8 of the last 10. He had that opening in the 8th and then the spare in the 9th, but the last 5 now have been strikes.
Paul's only missed the pocket 1 ball in the 3rd frame of the game, and he left the 3-7. Every other shot's been good.
So he can get 2 more strikes, put the pressure on Earl. There's one of them. 3 strikes now in the roll-off.
Once again, Jim, if Paul should get this strike, he would have 60 pins. Earl could come up and strike out and force another 2-frame roll-off.
Do they just keep going with 2-frame roll-offs until somebody wins?
It could be a confrontation similar to Borg and McEnroe Wimbledon early, that 34-point tiebreaker.
How much airtime do we have?
Oh, well, we'll run it over if we have to.
Here's Paul for his 4th strike in the roll-off, and he has it. And they are just getting more solid as they go along. 4 strikes in the roll-off for Paul Moser, 7 strikes in a row, and 10 of the last 12.
The last 7 were thrown almost perfect. Clutch situation, great shots.
And now it's just reverse pressure. It's on Earl Anthony. He must get 3 strikes in a row, or it's all over. The 10-pin, and it is over. And what a great match. Fine round of applause for these 2 bowlers. One of the best you'll probably see all year long on our coverage of the PBA on ESPN. It came from Fresno, California. Mark Roth is next against Paul Moser, and we'll be back. As we go into the 3rd match, and I don't see how in the world it can match the previous one.
Well, it isn't going to match the previous one.
You say that. You might not be right. You might get 2 or 3 roll-offs.
Well, all it can do, Jim, is parallel it. It can't do anything, you know, to overshadow it unless a perfect game is thrown.
Paul Moser and Mark Roth.
The last match had everything you wanted in it. The strike, he just keeps right on going. That is his 8th in a row. Paul's swing has really got loose in them last 4 or 5 frames. He could be tough. He's going to be tough.
They have met previously 1 time this week. Mark Roth won it, 255 to 236. Here's Mark going over on the Brooklyn side and leads one.
Bad shot. Looks like he didn't quite have the feel of the ball. Mark was throwing the lanes in practice from the outside. That shot there, he picked the ball up and moved in. Maybe he thought there was something there.
Mark has not won a championship tournament this year, but he has still won over $70,000. And there is a spare for Mark Roth. And I asked Mark about the lane conditions. Have they helped or hurt his game this week?
Well, lane's been pretty consistent throughout the week. I really didn't make drastic changes. That's one of the reasons why I bowled well this past week, and I've liked the house. And last year I played outside also and bowled very well. And maybe today I might bowl a little bit better than I have during the week.
Kind of peculiar. You ask a guy whether the lanes have helped him or hurt him when he's in second place, but he's had such a marvelous career. He's always been up there, and it was kind of up and down this week, but still has maintained pretty good credentials all the way through. Qualified 5th, 4th after the first match play block, 4th after the second a couple times. Looked like he may go down a little lower, but never really did.
No, every time you think Mark is going to drop down a little lower, that's when he seems to reach back and throw that 250, 260.
Here's Paul Moser. 7 strikes in a row at the end of last game, looking for his 2nd strike of this game. Somerset, Mass. Cut it down from behind, and he has 2 strikes in a row.
Last 5, 6 strikes Paul's got, they've been light. This one's a little high. 3-pin going off the wall. There's the trip on the 6. Great break. Paul deserves a break. He's bowled excellent so far. We can't throw every ball perfect. Let's be serious.
Paul going after another strike. Up on the left side for the 3rd frame. Puts it in the pocket. Nope, not quite. And he leaves 2.
Great shot. Again, penalized for throwing the ball too good. A 6. Paul has bowled fantastic. This is almost a crime. Now, the last time he left the spare, Jim, he overcut it, if you remember. So let's say if he learned anything from that. What's to learn? It's only a hair of an adjustment this time to make it.
He is shooting the 6-8. And misses it this time. He was going for it, no doubt about that one. And the crowd realizes it, and he leads it, but receives a nice round of applause.
That strike there would have really put the pressure on Mark, and complete turnabout. Paul threw the ball great, and now he's losing. He goes back in the chair, and he's behind in the match.
Mark from Little Silver, New Jersey. He won this tournament in 1977, and he has the baby split.
Mark, I can't believe he's moved in. He must know something that has happened to the lanes.
If he would happen to win this tournament, he will be #1 on the money list, winning just his first tournament of 1980. He's not going to get that one. No way. And Mark, after 2 spares, has an open in the 3rd frame, and he is open with a total of 46, but still only trails by 8 pins.
A little bit of justice there. Paul threw the ball good and was penalized, and he could have fell behind in the match, and Mark came right back and gave him the break back.
Here's Mark Roth now in the 4th frame. Trailing by just 8 pins. Still hasn't found it, but finds it there. So Roth with a strike, his first of the match. Paul Moser comes up in the 4th, and we'll be back to have it after this message on ESPN. Paul Moser, as he gets ready to go, we'll remind you to join ESPN all summer long for the PBA Bowling Tour. Our next stop, the Southern California Open from Torrance, California. And that will be on Friday, the 18th of July, 8 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. For our many fans on the West Coast, that is, of course, at 5 o'clock. Follow the top bowling stars. And each week we'll have the PBA on ESPN. Here's Paul Moser. He's open with a 54. If he strikes here, he'll maintain his 8-pin advantage. Beautiful, beautiful. That left side pocket, and Paul Moser strikes in the 4th frame. So Paul has a 54 strike, and Mark Roth a 46 strike. You see it there. You see Moser's open in the 3rd frame, and Mark Roth open in that same frame.
Paul's throwing the ball excellent.
Both splits. Mark Roth 310, Paul Moser the 6-8. Paul regaining that strike form. Still, he has struck in 10 of the last 11, shooting for 11 out of 12, and it just pounds that 10th pin in the ground.
Last frame on this lane, Paul Moser left a 6-8. Just a bad break for throwing the ball too good. He throws this ball just as good, but a shade more to the left. He is dead flush in the pocket.
Back to Mark Roth, and he gets good action. His second strike. This match is heating up as well. Both working on a double.
Classic example, Jim, of the great strike ball of Mark Roth. He hits him light, he shatters the pins apart. He hits him a little high, he still trips the 4-pin. That's what great champions are made of. He's got it.
That little guy, Paul Moser, really throws a mean ball.
Yeah.
And we know that Mark can fire. He puts it down, spins it up short this time, and not going to get that one. Still got pretty good action, dropping the other two out.
Excellent break to get 9 on that shot. That ball was thrown considerably wide. Good break, easy spare.
So Mark in the 6th frame now.
Mark don't take much time either. Just like Earl, he just picks the ball up. He knows what he has to do.
Puts it down the middle of the alley to convert. He's got a spare. That gives him a 95. Gives Paul Bicken back into the match. And Joe, we talked about the lane conditions, but one thing that I've noticed is there hasn't been the real high gloss, shiny finish this week as we see it some other weeks.
Well, this is that new finish a lot of the proprietors around the country are trying. It's a waterborne finish. It's similar to a soft lacquer finish, yet it has the properties of the harder plastic.
You see a little bit of the shine, but it's mostly a reflection off of other things. You don't see the real high gloss, and there's the 9-pin count for Paul Moser.
Great shot too, Jim, while we were talking about the finish. This finish doesn't particularly favor any side, left or right.
Well, a win by Paul Moser here will set up the lefties for the championship.
Yeah, the long and short of it.
That is true. And he spares it off. So it is still an 8-pin advantage, and they've just matched each other all the way down the line from the third frame over. Roth has a 95 spare and Moser 103 spare.
Last time Paul bowled Mark, I believe, was in Milwaukee. He needed a double to beat him in the 10th frame and left a solid 7. And I think last year on ESPN in Cleveland, Mark beat him 258, 257. So these gentlemen have had excellent matches, and they usually come right down to the end.
And he goes in and picks up 9 of them, leaves the 6-pin. He got his 300 game in the 3rd game of the final round, the 6th round of the tournament. And then after the 300, bowled only a 171, then concluded with 212, 203, 231, 227.
Well, sometimes after a big game like that, Jim, there's a little bit of a letdown. You know, you come over and right away the people are expecting you to do it again.
So there's a spare for Paul Moser. It has opened it up for Mark Roth. If he strikes, we have virtually a tie match as we will go into the 8th frame then, and we'll be back after this message. Auto racing on ESPN. You know, all summer we'll be covering sprint and midget class competition each week on the USAC circuit, and this week the Outlaw Stock Car Race featuring Bobby Allison. Sunday, July 13th, 9 o'clock Eastern on Total Sports ESPN. And all kinds of bowling this summer and fall on ESPN as well. Stay tuned. Mark Roth too high.
Mark hasn't thrown a good ball on this lane yet. I think he should move to the right, but I'm up here and he's down there, so I would have to say he's made the proper adjustments all week, and I didn't.
He leaves the 3-6-10. He left the 3-10 back in the 3rd and missed it.
Tough spare. He's going to go straight at it. Not much hook.
Not going to get it either. So that combination has just not worked out for him well in this match. And Mark Roth is open in the 7th frame at 121. Paul Moser has 122 spare. And he is definitely in control now.
Well, twice so far this match, Jim Paul has left the door open. Mark had a chance there to strike and then, you know, step up and take the lead. And both times he did it, Mark hasn't taken it. Week 10. Uncharacteristic of Mark Roth to leave a week 10. Usually the 6-pin flies into the channel and slaps that 10-pin out. Well, Mark is leaving that. He isn't throwing the ball as good as he can.
Mark Roth has always seemed to bowl well, he says. 5 second-place finishes so far in 1980. Always especially bowling well on these lanes here, which he has won a couple of times in this tournament.
You notice Mark throws a tremendous strike ball, a lot of power, and yet when he leaves the spares, he takes all that power off the ball and just throws the ball hard and straight. That's a good That's a good lesson for bowlers, you know, when they're coming up. You don't need all that power to knock down one pin. All you have to do is hit it with the ball.
These bowlers are going for $11,000 first prize. Second prize, $6,000. $5,000. There is a 9 count.
Another 6-pin. Great shot, though. Great shot. Not in any trouble. Nice control of the match. 20 pins.
Yep, spare here. There will be exactly 20 pins going into the ninth. Fourth place, $4,000. In fifth place, $3,500. So Jay Robinson has the $3,500. And Earl Anthony, the $4,000. So the fourth and the fifth place remains the same as it was when we went in. And there's the spare by Moser in the eighth. There's the prize money. And $11,000, as we said at the top of the show, is quite a bit for a summer tour event. $90,000 total purse. And I believe it's about the 14th year or so that they bowled here in Fresno.
Well, Jim, you know, it's also a nice help that you people are televising the tour. That attracts the sponsors. It helps.
Looking down here to where Joe Hutchinson finished. I don't see him. There's a good strike from Moser, who is starting to pull away now. He's got a 161 on a strike. Mark Roth has just almost half the strikeout.
Well, the only reason you don't see me on that sheet is because it just doesn't go down far enough.
List the top 24, and you are not there. And Mark gets the good action strike in the ninth frame.
Well, Jim, if Mark Roth should strike out, he would have 201. If he does not get this strike here, Paul Moser is going to win just sitting on the bench.
Okay, Mark Roth strikes out. He's got 201. Moser goes spare strike. What does he have?
Tie.
201.
Ah, you made a liar.
Here's Mark. Got it. He's got his first strike in the 10th frame now.
Jim, more important than the tie, is that he struck. That forces, with the good fill, that will force Paul Moser to mark. Mark Roth, look at them revs. Here it comes. Just where he wants it, light. Pins off to the sideboard and coming back on the lane. Tremendous.
Gotta get it. Needs another one. He's too high, and he's not gonna get it.
Pin fill is big here. 187 with 2 pins. Paul Moser would have to get 9 out on the 2 shots to win. If he would get 8 out on 2 shots, it would be a tie.
So he picks up the 2 pins. And Mark Roth finishes with a 187. Mark had been averaging 219 for the week. And it looks like he may not get that championship this time.
The way Paul Moser is bowling, there was almost no chance. Paul's just so lined in. It's
5'4", 150 pounds, very strong and very durable. And there is a 9-pin count, and it's over.
It's a winner. Even if Paul should miss the spare, he would have 189. I don't believe he's going to miss it, but he has enough to win. And Mark will have to wait till next week to try to win another 3rd place finish. What are you going to do? 2nd and 3rd all the time.
And he spares it off, so he has a 181, a strike, and he will finish with 201. The opening match, Earl Anthony beat Jay Robinson 200 to 195. Paul Moser and Earl Anthony tied at 213, head-to-head roll-off.